Thanks for tuning in to My Valley, His Victory, hosted by me, Mackenzie Smith, where I interview Christians who love the outdoors and have walked through valleys in their lives. In a world of highlight reels and surface-level relationships, we all have faced hardships. I believe our experiences can be encouraging to others if we have the courage to be vulnerable. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." My goal is to inspire you to come to the Creator through His creation and connect you with Christians who have been through similar experiences. I pray that this podcast encourages you if you are in a valley and pushes you to share how God has turned your past valley into His victory. Hey friends, I have a special announcement. I am hosting 2 The Wilderness and the Word events in 2025, July 23rd through 27th and August 13th through 17th. These are Christian women's retreats in Eureka, Montana, with Audrey from the Trail North. Our goal with these retreats is to bring together a group of women who want to worship the Creator in His creation. Over these 5 days, you'll meet like-minded women who want to grow in community, worship in the outdoors, and challenge themselves personally. I can't wait to hang out with you, so shoot me an email at myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com for more information or the registration link. Spots are filling up, so make sure and reserve yours today. On today's episode of My Valley, His Victory, we have Andy Miller, also known as Metro on the Move. He is a Christ follower, creative at heart, and YouTuber. Andy was born in Newport Beach, California, and raised by missionaries, traveling the world to share the message of God. A profound life-changing moment deepened his faith and inspired a journey of reconnection with God and nature. Through Metro on the Move, he now celebrates a decade of exploring trails and inspiring others with the mental and physical benefits of hiking, as well as embracing a purpose-driven, sober life. Hey, Andy, thanks so much for being with us today.
Hey, Kenzie, how are you today?
I'm doing so good. How about you?
It's been a long weekend. I just got back from Sylvan, North Carolina. Was out in the mountains. Got a chance to ride up to Water Rock Knob and catch a view. How was your weekend?
You know, it was full of work, so not as fun and eventful as yours, but the weekends are usually the times that I work the most because my husband is usually gone, and so I can get a lot of things done, and I kind of have the opposite schedule as most people. So, Andy, why don't you go ahead and just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and who you are?
My name is Andrew Miller. I'm also known as Metro on the Move. I go by Andy with all of my friends, but on the trail, I'm known as Metro. I am a Christ follower, artist, singer, painter, content creator, and hiker. I am Gen X, and I am from Newport Beach, California. I don't know if that's a good enough intro or not, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So anyone that has a trail name, I always like to ask, how did you get the name?
Oh, that's a good question. So I was up in North Georgia at a shelter, and there was some people that were talking about local trails. And I chimed in and said, "Oh, have you heard about this trail or that trail?" And they're like, "Oh, seems like you know a lot about these trails up here. Are you a local?" I said, "Well, no, I'm from Atlanta. I just come up here on the weekends." And so they're like, "Oh, so you're one of those metros?" And I was like, I think I'll take that, So from there, I've used my name as Metro, as I am a city boy that goes out to the mountains. But I don't know. I feel that I'm most at home in the mountains. So I guess the name just stuck over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. So talk to us a little bit about how you got into YouTubing and the channel Metro on the Move. Talk to us about how that started.
Okay, so that's a really good question. So in 2015, I was visiting a friend who I hung out with pretty much every weekend, was a family friend. And this weekend was a little bit different because, during mid-conversation, he said a few things to me, which I think we'll go into a little bit more detail in a little bit. But and shortly thereafter, he had a heart attack and died. And I kind of looked at life as a whole and just said, I need to change my outlook on what I do on a day-to-day perspective and start getting outdoors more frequently. And with that being said, I found it was difficult to find places to go locally, not a lot of information on trails and so forth. So I decided to, one, not only go find local trails, but document them for video purposes to help others find places to go outside and reconnect with nature. And that's kind of how it got started for me in terms of just filming the experiences, the trails. And then from there, just started like reviewing various different pieces of gear and just started putting it on a channel more and more frequently. And then, as I started getting more and more comfortable with trails, I started getting on the AT and the Smokies, going to various different trails throughout the Southeast, and it just started to grow. And today we just hit about 6,200 subscribers and about 2 million plus views. So I'm very excited to see the channel continue to grow.
Yeah, that's amazing. Was hiking and backpacking something that you've always done, or was that about the time that you got into it all? Or kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
No, so, as a child, I was part of a group called Royal Rangers. I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but it's kind of like the Christian version of Boy Scouts. And I've always been, going out camping, backpacking ever since I was a very little boy, but more specifically to the Appalachian Trail. I've been hiking sections of it through various different programs and through my own efforts for the past 30 plus years. But there was a period of my life where I was not really interested in the outdoors whatsoever. I used to be a musician, and I used to focus in on playing shows throughout the Southeast, actually nationwide. I was living in Hollywood for a little bit. That's 20 plus years ago. And then again, as my friend died, I said, hey, I need to get out of this rock and roll lifestyle. I need to maybe tone myself down and maybe find a better way to not only reconnect with nature, but also to get myself realigned with God. So,
yeah, absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about that. Talk to us about how being in the outdoors and being out on trail plays a role in your relationship with God.
Excellent question. So to start, my parents were missionaries. So I grew up deeply ingrained in the Christian faith. When I say my parents were missionaries, my parents were part of an organization called Open Doors. My father specifically was part of a project called Project Pearl, which smuggled 1 million Bibles into China. I used to actually live in Hong Kong and was very familiar with not only preaching the word, but distributing Bibles to communist countries. That was what my parents were deeply ingrained in when I was younger. But again, as we move through our lives, drifting a little bit, I would say that, when I got into rock and roll and playing shows and so forth, I would say I wasn't exactly the best representative. And again, when my friend died, to kind of go into a little bit more detail on that, he was a staunch atheist. And the day that I came over, he was asking a lot of questions that I felt like I could have opened up a little bit more about my faith with him. I like to hear people out when they talk, and I don't like to necessarily force things on people. I like to share my faith. I don't like to necessarily ask too targeted of questions. But in this instance, he had actually looked at me, and right before he died, he said, who's to say that when I die, I go anywhere? And that was my opportunity to really open up. And just a few minutes after saying that, he died. So, staunch atheist, renouncing God right in front of me. I felt like that was my sign to be a better representative, again, kind of realign myself with God and, find healthier ways to reconnect with nature. And that's, again, how I started filming my adventures out on trail.
Yeah. So for being in the outdoors, what does that help you do in your relationship with Christ? Does it help you, grow closer to him? Does it allow you to hear him better? Kind of talk to us about that.
So in that regard, I mean, if you go backpacking solo, you have the first few hours of like getting adjusted to, oh, I'm out here. Okay, my car is probably fine. Yes, I got my keys locked. Everything's good. And then your mind starts to really think about what's going on in your life, right? And, if you're not comfortable with what's happening, in your life, it's really going to come out when you're out there on trails solo and hiking. So in those moments, I feel like that's when I can really share what's going on in my life with God and just be out there. I'm not trying to, entertain or do anything. I'm just out there in my own world with God. And I feel like, it's my own time to share my thoughts, to pray, to just, again, realign myself with God and through nature. It's pretty much how I do it. So I just walk with Christ, literally solo, and pray as I go along on trail.
Yeah. I love what you said, that whatever's going on in your life is going to come out on trail, because I think that's so true. We can fill our lives full of distractions and noise and maybe not have to actually address the things that are going on. But when we're out there, it's like a good reality of the state of things, for sure. So can you share a story with us about a way in which maybe God has revealed himself to you or spoken to you through the outdoors?
Okay, so I think I'll call this the Hippie on the Mountain story. So to add on to the story of, okay, I'm out here, I'm filming my adventures. Okay, I'm living this healthier lifestyle. Okay, I'm trying to, help others find ways to reconnect with God and nature. What was going on in my life? I was, slowly but surely trying to quit my vices, and one of those things was I quit smoking, and another thing was I got off all prescription medications that were prescribed by my doctors and so forth. Just kind of like living a more organic lifestyle, but I didn't quit drinking, right? I kind of always made excuses for it. And this particular morning, it was actually Easter Sunday of all mornings. My wife and I had climbed up on the Appalachian Trail to Cow Rock Mountain, and we ran into two thru hikers. And I can actually remember his name. I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name, but his name was Just Us in the Experience, right? I can't remember the other gentleman's name right now. I have it in a video somewhere, but in short, we started sharing stories of our background. And I told him how I got started with YouTube and blah, blah, blah. And he was telling me why he's on the trail. And, I started sharing with him. I was like, yeah, I've been able to pretty much realign myself spiritually. I've been able to quit most of my vices. I just can't quit drinking. And without hesitation, the guy looked at me because he just shared his own personal struggle with alcohol. He was like, it's not that you can't quit drinking, it's that you don't want to. And I guess it was that moment that I was like, oh, wow, I don't know this guy from Adam. He's sharing his personal struggle with alcohol. He's on his thru hike, and I'm out here on Easter Sunday. And then, God's using this guy to tell me, like, quit making excuses. It's time for you to make some moves. So about a week later or so, I actually went backpacking with a group called the Pinhoti Mafia. And during that particular trip, I had just had that experience. I'm thinking, okay, I need to stop drinking. I need to, figure this out. And this group, the Pinhoti Mafia, they're a group of class act Christian guys, straight laced, no bull crap. And, pretty much really good representatives. And I saw that they were able to live a life without having to drink and party and all that. And I was like, oh man, that'd be really cool if I could be like that one day. Specifically, there was a guy in the Pinhoti Mafia that I always refer to as, what would Jabin do? Because Jabin is actually one of the best representatives. I was like, man, if I could do anything, I wish I could live a little bit better lifestyle like this guy. And then about a week later, I was able to, through the grace of God, just basically quit drinking cold turkey. And I haven't touched a drink since. It's been almost 4 years. May 9th will be the actual celebration of 4 years. But yeah, so I would say that's a pretty powerful story in terms of, okay, change your life. And then, you're making excuses, and then you get called out, and then you get shown people, on trail that help realign you. I guess being a better representative gave me something to shoot for. And
yeah,
thank God that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And our listeners should know who Jabin is, because he has been on the podcast. That's Jeff Benefield, for those of you listening that maybe only know him by that. But yeah, he shared his story a few months ago. So listeners should be a little bit familiar with him. But yeah, that's wild that you just had some guy, straight up say, it's because you don't want to. And then you were put in community, with these guys. Was this your first trip out with the Pinhoti Mafia, or had you hung out with these guys before?
Yeah. So to kind of build upon the story of Metro on the Move. So for several years, I was a solo hiker. I did not go out with again, trying to find ways to ground myself, reconnect spiritually with God through nature. hiking solo, but I had seen a few different channels out there on YouTube, hiking groups, right? Like, oh, that'd be so cool to be able to join one of these hiking groups, especially they were all YouTubers. I was like, how awesome would that be? Well, one of these guys, his name was Brad, also known as the Crow Flies Hiking. I think he's also been on this podcast.
He has.
I reached out to him because he had hiked the Pine Mountain Trail, and it's like a 23-mile short trail that you can do one day, maybe 2 days if you'd like to extend it. He had done it before. And I was like, hey, would you be interested in maybe doing a collab video? I said, yeah, that'd be great. So we met up there, and on trail, he was talking about a guy named J-Ben. And I was like, the way you're explaining this guy, he's a YouTuber, loves Z-Packs, went to the AT kickoff. I was like, I think I know who you're talking about. And how I actually knew J-Ben was I was at the AT kickoff, and long story short, his wife ended up winning a Yeti cooler instead of Odie. And I thought that Odie should have won it because he obviously needed a cooler. He lives in a bus, maybe he might need a cooler more than someone else. And I just remembered having this dialogue with them as they were leaving. Crow saying, oh, that's J-Ben. I was like, oh my God. So on the Fiery Gizzard, I actually ended up getting to meet J-Ben again, but I had seen him at the AT kickoff. So it was kind of like a group. He asked me to join him on a hike at the Fiery Gizzard, but Crow was actually the person that introduced me to the Pinhoti Mafia. And that's how I was able to meet J-Ben formally, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. What interesting timing, and just, the grace of God, just putting those people in your life.
It's really random. And again, another one I would say is Leonitis. I don't know if you've ever spoken to him or not, but Leonitis, I had met him through YouTube, just kind of like random comments and conversations. And again, all of this was from YouTube. Crow, then he ends up, I know J-Ben, and then he's like Leonitis, and he ends up having all these people that I've kind of spoken to through the internet. And then the Fiery Gizzard was kind of like the first internet meetup. But Crow was the first person I met from the internet, which was really weird because it's always like, oh, hey, yeah, I don't know you from Adam, but hey, let's go meet up in the woods where we don't have cell phone receptions, from the internet. This sounds like the best idea ever. And then from there, it just blossomed into the Pinhoti Mafia.
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel like things have definitely changed. Like when I was growing up, it was like stranger danger, like don't, we had the Craigslist killers, and all the things. And it was like, you don't go meet up with strangers. And now I feel like I do it all the time. You just said you do it, but like go and meet people that we've met on the internet, and we go out into the wilderness with them, and it's great. And so I know my parents sometimes are like, you're going where? You've never met this person. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, but it's okay. I've done enough research at this point. Yeah, the Garmin.
I would say that since I got the Garmin, I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable about the no cell phone. Like at least I can send the last place that I was known to be to somebody, just in case, just in case.
Yeah, I agree. That's one of my must-haves, because my husband also is like, I would like to at least know where you are, because I do, like you, a lot of things either by myself or with a group of girls. And so it's like, yeah, I would just like to know that you're alive. So that was a must-have for me as well. So are most of your backpacking, hiking adventures, are they in the Southeast? I know you live in Atlanta, but do you do a lot of stuff in that area? Do you travel outside of the Southeast? Kind of where's your go-to?
All right. So I am, again, a Southeastern hiker. Some of the trails I do hike predominantly would be the Appalachian Trail, the Pinhoti Trail, the Pine Mountain Trail, the Foothills Trail. Those are pretty much my go-to places to hike. I have ventured out west to South Dakota, Nevada, California, and so forth, but predominantly it is going to be Southeastern trails, hikes as such.
Yeah. Is that your favorite area, or is that just because it's local?
It's by default, I would say. Again, I've been here a good portion of my life at this point. So also I am married, and for the past 20 years, I've been working in technology and advertising, but I haven't been able to get away mainly due to work related purposes. But that's
so it's a strong weekend warrior.
Strong weekend warrior. That's correct.
I love it. I've said this before, but it's so wild because I feel like there is so much more backpacking in the Southeast than I knew about when I lived there. And now that I'm not there, I feel like I've connected with most people in the Southeast. And I'm like, why didn't I know you when I lived here?
Right. And so especially again, if you know someone that knows these spots, it's a lot easier to have a guide to show you all these spots, but more importantly, it's just nice to have that resource. And to build upon that, I wanted to say, if you go to Hikers of America, I don't know if this is going to be one of those video podcasts or not, but I have a website called hikersofamerica.com. And specific to Georgia, if you are interested in finding out about local trails or trails that might be of interest, there's actually something called the Georgia Challenge. And it has 7 different hikes there, different sections that if you go check out those videos, it'll show you exactly what the trail's like, but also give you a really good taste of what Georgia has to offer on hikersofamerica.com.
Yeah, that's amazing. And is that the group that you just started? Tell us a little bit about it.
No. So Hikers of America or hikersofamerica.com. Just make sure for those that are listening to this, it is a resource to highlight all the backpackers that I have actually gone backpacking with. So if you go to that site, you'll not only see links to their social media, i.e. YouTube or Instagram, but all of those individuals that are listed on the top backpacking channels portion of the website, those are going to be all individuals that I've actually gone backpacking with. Now, there's other information on the site, like about events like Pinhoti Fest, AT Kickoff, Trail Days up in Damascus, all kinds of stuff like that nature. But the main purpose of the website was to highlight all of the backpackers that I've gone backpacking with. And again, you can find all their links and their resources on that website.
That's so cool. I love that. So you obviously live in Atlanta, which is a huge metropolitan area. So, and I would assume that, we said you're a weekend warrior, so you're not out in nature every day. Talk to us about how maybe a listener who's like you, who lives in a big metropolitan area, can connect with God on an everyday basis through nature or the outdoors.
Right. So for me, how I plan my hikes or whatnot is I do the research, try and make sure I have a trail in mind, get familiar with where I want to go backpacking, whether it be the Pine Mountain Trail or up on the AT or wherever it might be. And then as I go out there, what I do is I try and have more or less prayer requests, talking points, looking for some sort of connection to God when I'm saying, hey, here's what I'm going through in my life. Give me some guidance. And then I'm going through, again, after you get up on trail, you start going through all the thoughts in your mind. You start asking for guidance and starting to go through the thoughts that are going through your mind, walking through it. I look at okay, as I start to take these steps, I'm just walking through my thoughts, talking to God. And I believe that if you go out there with something specific in mind, as you begin to hike, as you begin to pray, I believe that those thoughts will come naturally and will help you in your own quest with God.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say that I feel like whenever I'm moving my body, my brain is actually moving forward as well. So I like that you said that as you're walking through your thoughts and you're walking on trail. It's really true. I find that when I sit on the couch, my thoughts are sitting on the couch. They're pretty stagnant as well. So moving definitely helps me move through my thoughts and things in my life too. So
to be specific too, like when you go out there, like have something specific in mind that you're trying to communicate, not just, I guess you could just go through all your random thoughts, but I feel like if you've had some specific things that you're dealing with, to go out there and say, God, humble yourself, because the hiking portion, you're going through peaks and valleys, right? And as you start to, gain elevation, you're starting to get winded and you're just like, I just want to get to the top. You want to get to the top and you're putting yourself out there. Well, that's kind of like how I believe, when you put yourself out there with God, saying, hey, look, this is what's important to me. Give me guidance. Give me a next step. Give me something that I need to focus on. And I believe that it happens just so naturally when I'm hiking.
Yeah, so true. So true. Okay, well, switching gears a little bit into the title of this podcast, My Valley, His Victory. Would love for you to share a valley or season of wilderness that you experienced and just what God taught you or prepared you for in that season.
Yeah. So peaks and valleys. So, I've shared some successes, right? So I had this eye-opening experience, and oh, wow, I saw someone renounce God, die in front of me. Now I've got this ambition to realign myself, to get on the right path and to, live a sober lifestyle and do all those things. Well, making those decisions, has led me to become more solo again, because what does that mean? Well, from my friend base, I noticed that, when it was around the bar scene and so forth, the drinking and so forth, when you quit drinking, people stop wanting to hang out, so it's like, hey, look, it's not like I can't be around you guys, but they're like, oh, no, 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 we just don't want to drink. And then you start seeing those friends contract with, were they really friends? Are they trying to be looking out for, I don't know, and then, from a social standpoint, business wise, it's a little bit different too. When people are used to entertainment and drinking, and now you're the person that's not drinking, well, is that really the right path for you now that you're not drinking? So career change, so losing friends, career change, things of that nature. So as far as the valley goes, it's just getting more comfortable with the new reality of living a sober lifestyle, and again, trying to be a better representative of Christ. Not everybody wants to hear that. So it's a balance, that challenges you. But the way I look at it is, I had an opportunity at one point to be a good representative, and I didn't. And, I think that by taking this path, hopefully it'll inspire others to potentially do that as well. And that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. So making such a life change and seeing maybe some negatives or what people could perceive as negatives, you change careers, you lost friends. How do you not get angry or upset as you have to lose and shed some of these things? Like where's the hope in that?
Well, number one, I don't get mad at God for anything, because if you think about it, most of the time, the situations that you're in are kind of the results, maybe indirectly or not directly, of decisions that you've made that may or more or less put you in that place. So, as far as getting mad at God, well, I have free will. So how can I get mad at someone when I'm, again, the person that might most likely put myself in that position? As far as staying positive, well, I've seen where paths lead throughout my life. Again, rock and roll scene, you see some stuff. I lived in Hollywood. I've seen some pretty crazy things in my lifetime, and I know where things lead. So I have that as a background saying, okay, if I go down this path, I know where that leads, and then over here, well, that was comfortable, but really wasn't going anywhere. But in this path, every time I create content, every time I go out, I have a new experience, and I'm getting further in my journey. So, that's my reward. So just keep moving.
Yeah. Things that maybe don't seem like worldly rewards, but are changing your life internally.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing.
Well, I mean, let's kind of build upon that positive side. So, again, I'm a firm believer that if you have a specific thing that you're looking for or asking for, that over time it will actually happen, right? There's a good chance that God will bring that to you in his own way. So, right now it's looking pretty good for 25 that I might be through hiking the AT. So pretty excited about that.
Yeah. Which is something that you wouldn't have been able to do if you wouldn't have changed careers.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah. So again, things change, friends leave, career paths change. Now things are kind of coming into play where it's like, this might be the right move, because again, it's just kind of all aligned itself to where it's like, I've always wanted to do this. And then all of a sudden things start really coming together. You're like, oh man, this is really starting to look like a green light. And now I'm feeling like it's happening. So 25 AT.
Yeah. And you have section hiked the whole thing?
No.
Just parts of it?
Yeah, up to Grayson Highlands. In fact, if I was to say my favorite area of the AT is the Grayson Highlands, but section hiked up to that point. I've done a section or two up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire area, but that was a long time ago. Most of my stuff is Damascus or south.
Yeah. And what is, I know you said that this has been on your list for a long time. What are some things that you're hoping to get out of this experience?
Well, again, if you go to Metro on the Move on my YouTube channel, you'll see how the journey has been out there with the AT, all the different experiences I've had. And I feel like it's really like closing up a chapter of, okay, you've been talking about it. You've been, going out there. This is the time. I feel like it's really closing a chapter, but it also helps solidify me as more than just a weekend warrior. Again, I'm not just a backpacker. Oh, I'm going to go jump out in the trail and just pray to God. I'm trying to help others that are in their, whatever it might be, like something they're going through. This might be something that could help them. For me, it's saying, hey, look, I've been talking about hiking the AT for 10 years. I realigned myself every possible way I could do this. I prayed about it, and now it's all coming to fruition. So it's like, again, if you pray with purpose and you're specific, I feel like this is just kind of closing up that chapter, letting me be able to, here was my journey, and here's kind of like the grand finale, once you get to Kahad, and that'll be super special once that day comes.
Yeah. I find it funny is not the right word, but just funny that God uses the things that we're drawn to. You've had this desire for a long time, and it may not have really ever seemed like a possibility, but it's been a desire, that you've had. And now that you have made some big adjustments in your life and you have kind of dedicated your walk a little bit more in line with God, like He is now, and you have dedicated maybe even the purpose of this trip to God, because you're saying, you want to go out and you want to help others. Like now that door has been open because you stepped in obedience here, and here, and you've submitted that goal and that thought to God. Yeah. And so it's really special how God works in that ways. Like, I think, we have these desires and we have these things, and they may not at first seem like they align with God. It's like, yeah, I just want to go out and hike the AT. But then over time, to see that change, and maybe, talk to us a little bit about, has that always been your desire? And you said it came 10 years ago. I would assume that wasn't your goal 10 years ago. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So when I said earlier, be a better representative, it's near impossible to be like Jesus in every aspect, because you're a human. You're going to make mistakes. And, if you can't live by a certain standard, when some people see this, it just kind of diminishes what being a Christian actually means, right? To some extent, you can actually tarnish or turn people away. So, I'm hoping at this point in my life that I can be a better representative. So if someone sees me, that it would be a motivator in the right way. And I feel like I'm finally in that right place to be that person. So I don't really, again, my background and where I came from, if you talk to some of my old friends, they're like, what are you talking about? This guy, and that's what I was trying to say is that at this point in my life and how I've stopped drinking and how I've realigned myself with God, I'm hoping that these stories will help those that might be in a similar struggle to say, okay, if this guy can do it, I can do it, and not only that, if he's saying that his faith was able to help him do this, then I want to know more about that too. So yeah. I want people to see that and, want to know more about it. And that way I can share more about my journey with them, so they might feel this is something they could do as well.
Yeah. I remember you said when we first talked, all you want to do is share a message of hope. And I think that is so incredibly special. And I think that is just absolutely amazing that is your view, and that's what you're looking to do. So Andy, for those who maybe want to follow along with your journey on the AT in 2025 or just with your YouTube channel, talk to us about where they can find you or where they can connect with you.
With Instagram, I'm out there. I'm on, it's just one word, Metro on the Move. It's just all mashed together. But my primary social media outlet is on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Metro on the Move. And if you're looking to find out more about backpacking trails, gear reviews, events, and things of the such throughout the Southeast and beyond, Metro on the Move is a channel that's dedicated to that. So I hope you guys will join us over there. And if you could watch a video or two, drop a comment, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff, that would be great.
Yeah. And will you leave our listeners with a word of encouragement or a piece of advice if maybe they have something that they are struggling with that they need to make a change in their life?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, the hippie on the mountain story was, I said I had reasons for everything and I had an excuse. And if you want something, again, you have to be specific. You have to be honest with yourself about why you want it. And in its own way, if you are communicating that with God, I believe that in his way, he will help you walk through that. But you have to be honest with yourself. You can't make excuses. And if you truly want something, I mean, anything is possible through God. And I hope this story will help you help people realize that through this story.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kinsey. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks. You too. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of My Valley, His Victory. If you or someone you know are interested in being on this podcast, please email myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com.